If there's one type of video that I found myself watching quite a lot of, it's regional differences in video games. And while to some that might seem like a boring type of video to watch, I personally find it fascinating. And surprisingly, despite Gran Turismo just being a racing game with no story or even much to localize, there are a surprisingly large amount of differences between each version of the game. And in this video we are going to be looking at some of them. Starting with the PS2 era's Gran Turismo 3, as I have had to play through the three main versions of Gran Turismo 3 to create several of the videos on this channel. Now these three versions are the original NSTC-J version, which is the Japanese version, the NSTC-U version, which is for Canada and North America, and then the PAL version, which is for Europe and possibly Australia as well. I'm not too sure about that. The PAL version was the version that I played and the one I'm most familiar with. And for simplicity, and because I am a stammer, I will be referring to the versions as the Japanese, American, and European versions. So let's get started with the version differences in Gran Turismo 3. When you boot up all versions of Gran Turismo 3 for the first time, the Japanese and American versions will immediately take you to the opening movie. But the European will instead ask you which language you wish to select. Yes, you can select from 5 languages to play: English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish. And you may think, well, that's not very interesting. But actually, the language you select determines one thing, as there is a version difference in the European version. And by that, a difference with the Japanese and American versions too. And that is, if you select English as your language, you will get the Vauxhall brand. Yes, in the Japanese, American, and French, Italian, German, and Spanish languages, you will get Opel as a brand, instead of Vauxhall. This makes sense, as Vauxhall is the British equivalent of Opel. From Gran Turismo 4 onwards, both were included simultaneously. And I don't know why they didn't just keep both of them in, as yeah, they might be the same car with a different badge. It gives the player the false pretense of there being more cars in the game, which would have been useful as Gran Turismo 3 has the least amount of cars in it for a mainline Gran Turismo game. And as a kid, I sometimes did select a different language to play in. I myself am half German, but I don't speak it, as we'll soon come to see. But I remember occasionally seeing the VX220 changing with the Speedster and having no idea as a kid why that happened. But obviously now I do. While on the topic of languages, obviously depending on the language you pick will determine which language the game is in, and so icons in the game look a little different in other languages. Interestingly, the Japanese version has their icons in English, and the European and American names are slightly different. But this is commonplace in games, as European English tends to be more literal, as it's easier to translate into all the other European languages. And while we are on the topic of icons, in the dealership in the Japanese version, the spaces between the brand names of the selection page is wider than in other versions. The pricing of cars and parts is also different. While it is the same in other versions, the Japanese is closer to their currency, the yen. And so things may look more expensive, but they aren't. Although when I was playing through the Japanese version, I did struggle to afford things, so maybe the Japanese version is more difficult, which is sometimes the case for other games, so yeah, I'm stating it here. The Japanese version of Gran Turismo 3 is more difficult than the others. Now, if we go back to the opening movie and the soundtrack in general, the soundtrack is different in all regions. I won't go into details, but here are the song lists for each region, which of course obviously means that the opening movie has a different track playing. Moon Over the Castle for the Japanese version, Are You Gonna Go My Way by Lenny Kravitz for the American version, and Feed Us Just a Day for the European. My personal ranking of these songs would be Just a Day, as it's my favourite purely for nostalgia, but also just because it goes the hardest. And then Are You Gonna Go My Way? It's a little more toned down, but still fits perfectly for a racing game. And then Moon Over the Castle as my least favourite. Personally, I'm not a fan of this song in general. I know that will upset some people, but we can't move on yet because the opening movie is actually different between versions. The Japanese version has a few changes from the other movies. Each movie has a few different tweaks and changes in camera shots than the others. but the American and European are mostly similar. The Japanese version has a few other changes from the other movies. To list a few, there's a couple of slowed down shots with the rally cars, more shots with the dream cars, and on the Grand Valley Bridge section, the Toyota GT1 races against the Zonda race car in the Japanese version, but the Nissan R390 GT1 race car worldwide. But of course, the biggest change is the inclusion of the Lamborghini Nomad Diablo, which of course brings us to the next big point. The Lamborghini Nomad Diablo GT1 appeared in GT5 and 6 worldwide, but in the Japanese version of Gran Turismo 3, Polyphony were able to license it through the Japanese Lamborghini Owners Club, a team competing in the JGTC. As Gran Turismo 3 released in Japan first, Polyphony were able to add it in the Japanese version, but had to remove it worldwide, although no mention of Lamborghini is present in the Japanese version, from the Diablo's name to the lack of brand in the tune shop. Continuing on with the Diablo, the event Italian Avant-Garde features both the Diablo and Zonda race car in the event's poster and as opponents. You can also use any Italian car you want for this event in the Japanese version. However, worldwide, the poster now features a Zonda C12 in place of the Diablo, while also restricting the event to Zonda only. Interestingly, the Zonda race car is the prize car for this event in all versions. Now, still on the topic of the Diablo, yes, Polyphony milked it for all they could in the Japanese version, as they should. It appears as an opponent in the Professional All Japan GT Championship on Professional difficulty, where it will actually be at the back of the pack for the most part, with the exception of Test Course having the highest top speed. But that's not the point I was going to make, as it's not just the opening movie it features in video format. In Gran Turismo 3's arcade mode, each track has a short preview showcasing the track with some dynamic replay footage. In some cases, the Japanese version has different clips to the worldwide releases. And some of these tracks are random ones, like a few of the rally tracks, and even the class selection screen is different in a few instances. But the Diablo is mainly the reason for these changes, as it features in a few of the previews. And so Polyphony obviously had to change the worldwide versions to not feature the Diablo. But it seems they weren't always successful, as for Apricot Hill Forward, you can quite clearly see the Diablo present. It maybe wasn't too big of a deal since it isn't present in the game as a playable car, but it's still visible in a few frames, including the opening movie and the title menu. Now, that is all for the Diablo for this video, but it's interesting just how one car can cause so many changes within a game. Although I've just lied to you because we actually aren't done with the Diablo yet, as indirectly for some miscellaneous things, the text position is slightly different between versions. This can be seen in my Italian Avant-Garde car battle between the Zonda race car and the Diablo GT1. The Japanese version has the text higher than worldwide, which isn't really a big deal, but is obviously noticeable. And now that is all for the Diablo's inclusion for this video. Although I do wish it was in Gran Turismo 7, but we'll save that for another video. Anyway, for some more miscellaneous things, the Japanese version uses the metric PS, Vertestärke, whereas worldwide it is Imperial BHP, brake horsepower. In arcade mode, it is possible to come up against two Viper Oricas as opponents. If you use one yourself, well, half the field is made up of Vipers. Prize cars are also different between versions, but I don't want to spoil the excitement of winning prize cars. Although unsurprisingly, for the Professional All Japan GT Championship, when you'd usually win the Diablo GT1 in the Japanese version, you win the Zonda race car worldwide. I'm coming at you now in editing, as one version difference I completely forgot is something unique to the American version, which is the American version is the only version to use miles per hour instead of kilometers per hour. Gran Turismo 4 onwards allows you to switch, but in Gran Turismo 3 the units are set. It's interesting how switching measurements isn't an option in at least worldwide releases, as both miles per hour and kilometers per hour were made by the point of worldwide release. It seems that in general, America and the UK are really the only countries to use miles per hour. But that's all for the miscellaneous stuff. To close off this video, let's end with some more version exclusive cars. The Formula 1 cars. Yes, F1 debuted in Gran Turismo 3, but with a twist. And if you saw my Gran Turismo 3 Formula 1 cars video, you'll know what I mean. In the Japanese and American version, you can win a total of 6 different F1 cars on screen now. But in the European version, you could only win 2. Yes, just 2. And they were called the Polyphony 001 and Polyphony 002. Yeah, we got the short straw there. It all surrounds licensing. As a kid, I never unlocked any of the F1 cars, so it never bothered me that we got less than worldwide. But as an adult, having to unlock all 8 of them and play all versions to do so is definitely a challenge. But for your viewing pleasure, I did it. And so there we have it, several version exclusive differences between Gran Turismo 3's NSTC-J, NSTC-U and PAL version. There are probably so many more I missed, but I feel these were the more interesting ones, with some random little ones thrown in too. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if you like this video, I can definitely look at doing version differences for all the other Gran Turismo games too. And if you know of any version differences I missed, list them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.